me just a moment. I'm just going to share my PowerPoint and then we'll get started. Just takes a moment to happen. Ooh, is it doing it? Oh yeah, lovely, it's doing it. I think this is the bit where it struggles, turning it into a slideshow. Right, can everyone see that okay?
Yeah, it's come up all right, Kim.
Brilliant. Okay, well, welcome everybody joining us again this evening after your long, busy days of work. We really appreciate it. So tonight we're going to be talking about the characteristics of effective learning. And I've got a little catchphrase thing there, supporting positive learning behaviours, because that is something that we really need to do with the children we're caring for. This is a Stronger Practice Hub webinar with myself, Kim Barnettson, and we've also got Lisa Walter and Damon from the barn from the Stronger Practice Hub. Damon's going to be our IT person because I can't see the chat when I'm doing the PowerPoint. So he'll let me know if anyone pops anything in the chat. But if you need to say anything or you want to ask a question or anything at all, you can either just pop your hand up, put something in the chat, unmute yourself and just interrupt. That's absolutely fine. I have allowed some time at the end for a little bit of conversation, but honestly, I'm open to having some chat halfway through. It's absolutely fine. So here's our agenda for the day, for the evening. Excuse me, a little bit of an introduction. What are the characteristics of effective learning? Why are they so important? I'm afraid I can't see what that one says at the end because I've got Damon in front of me. What does that last one say? How are they something? I can't see it. Hang on a second. How can I get rid of this, Damon? Oh, I can put you down there, can't I? Sorry. How can we support their development in children? So sorry about that, everyone. I make these PowerPoints and I forget that I always have a little screen covering up part of it. Time for questions and chat. Then I've put some references and a little bit of further reading. And as always, we use the early years evidence store to support our claims. It's not just me telling you what I think is a good idea, it's all evidence-based. So what are the characteristics of effective learning, or COEL, as we quite often call them, don't we? I think we're all familiar with development matters and birth to five, that type of thing, and all of the areas of development that children have. So what we could think about when we look at those, they might say things like can turn the pages of a book, or is starting to use cutlery, or can drink out of an open cup, or can count up to five. These are things that children have learnt to do or can learn to do, but this is how they learn, not what they're learning. And there is quite an important distinction between them. And the characteristics of effective learning are split into three sections, and each section again is divided up. So if you bear with me, I'm going to run through what these sections are, and you'll see as I'm talking through them that you will recognize these in the children in your setting all the time. So the three sections are playing and exploring, engagement; active learning, motivation; thinking creatively and critically, thinking. And why are they important? Well, I've got this lovely quote from Birth to Five Matters, and it's quite a long quote. And the little bit before this said, we don't know what the future holds for the children in our care. So the best preparation we can give these children is to promote these positive learning dispositions or behavioural dispositions by providing living experiences of making choices, innovating, taking responsibility, facing challenge, thinking flexibly and critically, and learning how to learn. And that's what the characteristics of effective learning are. They're so important because they support all the things that we need throughout life. we need to be resilient. We need to be flexible in our approach to thinking about new things. We might face challenges. We all face challenges throughout life, don't we? And we need to know how to bounce back from that. And we learn that from learning when we're very young how to bounce back from setbacks, how to think about doing something and it doesn't work and then trying a different way to do things, of making ideas, of making choices that boost our confidence. All of those things are just like amazingly important life skills. And we, as early years practitioners, can support them really, really easily. And we'll see how to do that at the end. Anyone who's been to any of the other webinars won't come as a great surprise when I tell you how we can support them. So they are so important because these are these critical life skills that we really need to embed in children when they're very young to support them throughout their school life and their adult life. So I'm going to read through the 3 different sections, and as you see, they're broken down, but I'll just read through them. And I know it's a bit boring when people read off slides, but it's so we have this, we have the wording in our head, the terminology in our head when we're talking about it. So playing and exploring. This could be showing curiosity about objects, events, and people, using senses to explore the world around them, engaging in open-ended activities, or showing a particular interest. While I'm reading through this, think about the children in your settings and how you are seeing these things all the time. Playing with what they know, so pretending objects are things from their experience, presenting their experiences in play, or taking on a role in play. We've all seen children come home from school and start playing schools, haven't we? And everyone, all the children are going shopping with their handbags and or taking their babies for a walk or putting their babies to bed. We see this all the time, don't we? Being willing to have a go. So initiating activities, seeking a challenge, showing a can-do attitude, taking a risk, engaging in new experiences, and learning by trial and error. And then the next section is active learning or motivation, being involved and concentrating. So that can be showing a deep drive to know more about people and their world, maintaining a focus on their activity for a period of time, showing high levels of involvement, energy and fascination, not being easily distracted, and paying attention to details. Anyone who's come to any of the network loose parts sessions will know how incredibly engaged the children can be in their creations. That's what we're looking for. To keep on trying. So persisting with an activity or towards a goal when challenges occur, showing a belief that more effort or a different approach will pay off and that their skills can grow and develop. Do you remember when we were talking about schemas and we were saying about it's a bit like an experiment, trying different ways of doing the same thing and see what happens. Bouncing back after difficulties. Enjoying and achieving what they've set out to do. So showing satisfaction in meeting their own goals, being proud of how they've accomplished something, not just the end result, enjoying meeting challenges for their own sake rather than external rewards or praise. And then we move on to thinking creatively and critically. So having their own ideas, thinking of ideas that are new and meaningful to the child, playing with possibilities. What if, what else, what can I do, what will change, visualizing and imagining options, and finding new ways to do things. It always reminds me of a boy I had a few years ago now, he's at secondary school, who wanted to find a new way to carry his bucket and spade home from the beach. And he invented a way of putting a spade inside his shirt with the handle sticking out and then the bucket hanging over it. You know, and he had his hands free. It worked perfectly for him, and he could carry things in the bucket. Having their own ideas, creative thinking, so making links, noticing patterns in their experience, making predictions, testing their ideas, developing ideas or of grouping sequences and cause and effect. This a lot of that sounds like the webinar when we were talking about schemas, doesn't it? And we know, don't we, that our brains are wired to recognize patterns, patterns in nature. I don't just mean visual patterns, I mean the sequences, because that's how we predict the world around us. So that type of thing is very, very important to children, and they learn that through their own experience and their own activities. Working with ideas, so planning, making decisions about how to approach a task, to solve a problem or reach a goal, checking how well their activities are going, flexibly changing strategy as needed, and reviewing how well the approach worked. Now, that's all of the characteristics of effective learning. Now, I've just got some photos without any text, apart from this little bit on the front, that we can look at and try and examine what's going on here. Can we see the characteristics of effective learning in action in these photos? So here we have a child who's tried to get water. This is in my garden. So tried to get water from the water butt, not the water butt, sorry, the fountain into the tub there. He's got his fishing net with him. So he's obviously got some idea about catching things in the water. But look how he's done it. He could have gone there with a bucket and filled up a bucket and run backwards and forwards to the tub. But he's gone and found some pipes. He's joined the pipes together. He's made sure the pipes are long enough to get to the tub. He's propped them up so that they work the water wheel as well. It's had absolutely no adult involvement at all. It was all his idea. And the resources were just there. It was just in an enabling environment. So you can see that type of engineering thinking, can't you? How can I do it? How many times did he try and it didn't work? And he kept trying and changing it around until he was happy with the end result. That is characteristics of effective learning. And that's going to really help him in the future when things don't go quite right. He knows that he can try things a different way. Here we've got two of my little ones at the climbing frame at the park and climbing nets. And this is to sort of illustrate letting children risk assess their own challenges, really. Look at the joy on their faces that they've got that high up on that climbing net. I think it was the first time the little girl on the right had ever got that high. Now, obviously, none of us want our children to get hurt, but also we have to let them take risk. Otherwise, they'll never learn how to manage their body in these sort of circumstances and what's safe and what's not. And learning that type of what's safe and what's not when you're younger supports those decisions when you're older as well. So when you're likely to take risky decisions later on as a young person, your brain is already able to understand the difference between something you can do and something you really shouldn't be doing. And it all starts with these really, really easy things to enable for us, but they make a big difference to children's characteristics of effective learning. I've put this one in because it's sort of showing children just using resources in whichever way they want to use them. They're adding different things to them. They're using different tools. It's their idea, their creative idea, no adult involvement. They're just able to do their own thing. Here we've got them working as a team. This is at one of our loose parts sessions. You know, one of them's having to hold that pole while the other one puts the shapes on the top. This just covers so many areas of development, doesn't it? But from a characteristics of effective learning scenario, it's really good. They're just working together. They're having to work out a strategy to make these things stack up. They're having to think. What I'm trying to get across here? They're having to think about what they're doing. Again, no adult input. Now, this happened last week, and I only managed to get a couple of pictures, but I thought it's quite a good example of what we're talking about here. So on the left, this again is in my garden. This little one, she's quite petite and she struggles to climb up this to the next level to get down the slide. And she can just about do it, but she managed to put the crate there. so that she had a step to climb up on. And then she'd forgotten to bring her dump truck, which she wanted to put down the slide. So she got back down, but she was really struggling to get back down. She was laying on her tummy, wiggling her legs backwards, but couldn't quite reach the crate. And she was getting quite worried. Now, I can't reach up there. I'm too short. I'm quite a short person myself. So all I could do really was stand and give her some encouragement. I didn't suggest what she should do. She came to these conclusions by herself. She found that cushion, which had been up by the top of the slide. She dropped it down and it landed on the crate. And then she wiggled backwards and put her feet down. And because that cushion was there, she was able to reach the bottom. Then she could get her dump truck, climb back up, put the dump truck down the slide. Her goal had been achieved. And you can just see on her face, can't you, that I did it. And she did it by herself. She didn't need an adult to do it for her. I was nearby. I wasn't, nothing horrible was going to happen to her. She thought it through. She didn't get upset. She was trying to work out how to achieve her goal by herself, and she did it. And what an amazing feeling! And having that confidence in your own decision and problem solving skills is what we need for children to have as they get older. So after looking at those photos and reading through everything I could possibly find on the characteristics of effective learning, and believe me, there is a lot written about it, I've tried to sort of condense it down into the bits that I feel are the most important for us to be able to support the children. And like I said before, anyone who's been to any of the other webinars won't be surprised by any of these things, because they're repeated for a reason. The evidence shows that this is the way that children learn best. Excuse me. So, first one, time and space. Give children time, give children space to come to their own conclusions, to solve their own problems, to not be rushed, to experiment and create in their own time. I think as childminders, we are really lucky that we can do that. We're not quite as pinned down to the routines of some larger settings. And I know we might have school runs or whatever, but generally speaking, we can be a little bit more flexible with that, can't we? So time and space, definitely, that was one of the main ones. Sustained shared thinking. I'd really like to cover this in a bit more depth in another webinar, but really that means that the adult and the child are working together to solve a problem, but at the same level. You're not overpowering the child. It's not, I'm the adult, I know best, you're the child, you know nothing, let me impart my wisdom. It's not that at all. It's sharing on an equal level. Yes, you might suggest some things that a child might not have thought of, but you're letting the child take the lead. Process over product. Anyone who came along to the paint webinar or has been to any of the networking sessions will know how important this is. Evidence does show that when children are involved in an adult-led, let's say, craft activity, let's say, for instance, it's a handprint activity about Mother's Day. Mother's Day's coming up, isn't it? Yeah, that's a nice thing for the mother to have, maybe a hand of their print of their child. But from a learning perspective, there is very little learning taking place there because it's an adult-led activity. The adult's thought of the idea, the adult has got the resources ready, and the adult's probably doing the drawing around the hand and the cutting out, aren't they? It's not something that's been led by a child, and evidence again shows us that, as it says at the end, when children lead their own learning, then learning is more effective. So process over product means don't expect an end product. If it's painting, for example, it's enough to just paint. It might be enough to just mix up paint. It might be that you're painting yourself. It might be that you paint over a huge cardboard box and then you move on from it. You're done. There doesn't have to be an end product. And sometimes there can be an end product and then it can be deconstructed, and that's part of learning too, and that's fine. This is something I think is really important to get across to parents. don't expect an end product. It's okay. And if you want to share something with parents, why not take pictures of their children engaged in these processes so you can explain where the learning is, which I think is really helpful because, in fairness, most parents aren't early years practitioners and don't understand how learning works. Um, so, again, from an adult perspective, we can model, we can scaffold where needed, but as it says down here, don't take over. And that's actually a direct quote from Birth to Five Matters, don't take over. Once an adult moves in, takes over, tells the child what to do, then that learning opportunity is gone. It's they need to do it themselves for it to have a real impact on their development. You can work alongside them by all means. You know, if you're all trying to work out how to cross a stream by building a bridge together, great, all do it together, but don't take over. On a similar vein, respect children's decisions because it's up to the child what they want to do with the resources, how they make something, how they don't make something, how they use them. Children's imaginations are much richer than ours. They might see value in a resource that to us can only be used one way, but it's different for children, and we should respect that. Using positive and specific praise is something that always comes up with the characteristics of effective learning. It's amazing if you can say to a child, well done, that's brilliant, but actually what's brilliant? Which part of that was brilliant? If you can be specific and offer really detailed praise without it being too cheesy, of course, then that helps the child to understand. It makes that link between that particular thing I did. Yes, it worked really well. So if we're thinking of the little girl climbing up on the climbing frame with her dump truck, when she did manage to get down and was able to get onto the crate with the cushion there, I said, oh, well done. Because you put that cushion there, you were able to reach it with your feet. Well done. That was such a clever idea. You know, it's only got to be something specific like that. It doesn't have to be anything too, you don't have to go overboard. And lastly, as always, providing an enabling environment. And by that, I mean an environment where children can use resources, open-ended resources, loose parts, real objects, you know, on the mud kitchen, have metal things, have wooden things, have stuff that's real, and just give children the opportunity to use those resources how they want to use them, not how we think they should be used. I mean, sometimes I look at my mud kitchen and I think I'm just yearning to clean it up and set it up nicely, but that's not what the children want. We have to, as it says there, respect their decisions and let them lead their own learning. So, as I say, if you want to go and read Birth to Five Matters and all the other sort of documents on characteristics of effective learning, please do. But this was me taking all of the bits and taking them out and saying, well, if I had to condense it down, this is where I'd come out to these points here. Notice that at no point through any of this does it say anything about an adult taking over or an adult planning an activity. So as we were saying last week, we're not in the moment learning. When we were talking to the amazing Kate, we were saying Ofsted don't really, if you're thinking about Ofsted and worrying about what Ofsted are going to say, if they come round and you've got children there who are all just doing their own thing randomly with the resources, it's not random to those children. And if you can say that to the inspector, this is why we're doing this, this is why that child's doing that, they're using their critical thinking skills to join those pipes together, that's providing a really enabling environment that's not adult-led. So generally speaking, evidence shows us that adult-led activities have less learning value than child-led. The EYFS says it all the time, let children lead their own learning. And if we're able to do that, then children really can sort of thrive in this positive learning environment. and they can get all these characteristics of effective learning. This is what we want them to have to support them to move on. It's almost more important than all those little things that they can do in the development matters learning areas, where it's almost more important that they don't mind, that they can, use critical thinking skills rather than be able to do their shoes up. It's those things come in time, don't they? And I think if we can allow children time and space to create and explore their own environment, they do the learning themselves, really. So as you see, this is pretty much, we keep saying the same things over and over again, but that's because they are proven to be an effective learning tool. So here are my references and further reading. I think we've all seen those before, haven't we? The Early Years Evidence Store, Birth to Five Matters, which I'm sure we're all familiar with, and Help for Early Years Providers. The picture is of two of my little ones stuck in the mud pit and helping each other out, which I thought was quite appropriate for today. And I'm just going to stop sharing so that we can have a chat. So that was quite a quick presentation, but that's because I've left some time because I'd really like to have a chat about characteristics of effective learning, whether you're familiar with them, whether anyone's got any questions about how to support them, that type of thing.